Sirens in the control room. Red lights. Astronomers sprint like caffeinated meerkats because a pair of atomic clocks just disagreed by a few nanoseconds. Nanoseconds. That's the time it takes a YouTuber to say, "Smash that," and lose your attention. One clock rode a jet. The other sat sulking on Earth. The jet clock ticked fewer times. It didn't break. It didn't nap. It simply moved fast and, like a teenager doing chores, did less. Welcome to the dumb magic that isn't magic. Time slows down the faster you move. Not a vibe, not a hallucination, a measurement that makes engineers cry with joy and pilots cry into their helmets. Picture a row of clocks lined up like judges on a talent show. You push one clock onto a high-speed treadmill. The others watch, smug. The running clock's hands grind through fewer seconds while the bench warmers pound out every tick like a metronome with a grudge. That's not clock fatigue. That's relativity. Speed is a tax. The universe collects it in seconds. Pay up, athlete. Okay, you say. But is this, like, sci-fi? No, it's as sci-fi as a receipt. We can tally it. Particle accelerators whisper it. GPS screams it. Muons, tiny subatomic divas born in the upper atmosphere, should decay long before they reach your lungs. At walking speed, they'd vanish. At 0.99 C, they last long enough to crash your backyard barbecue. Their internal timers are stuck in slow-mo while they blitz through the air like late students sprinting to class. Nature looked at our expectations and said, "Adorable," then handed us extended lifetimes and a homework problem. This hits astronauts too. Scott Kelly spends 340 days zipping around Earth. He comes back a hair younger than his Earth twin. By how much? Not vampire levels, but measurable. Imagine returning home and announcing, "I missed your birthday because my time budget accrued fewer seconds." You'll still owe a cake. You just get to be smug about physics while slicing it. Here's the recipe. Einstein's relativity says the speed of light is constant for everyone who is not accelerating like a maniac. That constancy bulldozes your cozy sense that time is a universal drumbeat. If light won't budge, something else has to flex. So distances bend, durations stretch. Simultaneity melts like cheap ice cream on a radiator. Space and time form a tag team called space-time. And time takes one for the team whenever you stomp on the gas. Fast clocks tick fewer seconds. Not act broken. Not lag due to Wi-Fi. Fewer seconds happen. Your process bar of life moves slowly relative to the couch potatoes. Meanwhile, to you, everything feels normal because your brain is the clock on the treadmill. It says, "All good here." It always says that. Brains are terrible at absolute anything. Ask two people what 5 minutes feels like on a treadmill and during pizza delivery. Same seconds, different stories. Relativity weaponizes this mismatch with actual equations. Engineers wouldn't tolerate woo. They only tolerate explosions. Yet, GPS satellites carry clocks tuned to be wrong on purpose. Why? Because if they weren't pre-adjusted for both their speed and their altitude above Earth's gravitational cuddle, your phone would misplace you by kilometers per day. Imagine calling a ride and getting a submarine. Without relativistic corrections, your map app becomes modern art. The moral economy here is brutal. Motion trades space for time. You go farther in space by spending more of your time in slow-mo. The universe is that gym membership you forgot to cancel. Looks free, bills arrive. Race a beam of light, and you'll never catch it. Instead, your seconds dilate like yoga pants that saw one squat too many. The faster you push, the more your personal minutes stretch thin. Everyone else's life accelerates past yours. Parties happen. Trends mutate. Meanwhile, your watch shrugs and says, "We're chill." It's the cosmic equivalent of texting "on my way" while still in the shower. But if my time slows, don't I see their time slow too? Who's right? Both. That's the part that makes philosophers sigh and physicists order extra coffee. Each traveler carries a ruler and a clock. Each trusts their own gear. Each judges the other's gear as weird. It's not hypocrisy. It's baked-in geometry. When paths reunite, say, when the traveler lands, the receipts get compared, and the discrepancy isn't a fight. It's the bill. The faster route through space came with fewer ticks through time. The ledger balances. The accountant is space-time. It never smiles. You can feel the stakes in your bones. Time isn't a single universal stadium clock glaring down from the scoreboard. It's a personal wristwatch strapped to your motion. Jog, and it drifts microscopic amounts. Fly, and it drifts more. Orbit, and it sulks. Spin around a black hole. Different story, different sulk, different tax bracket. The point is this: now is not a global group chat. It's a local whisper. Let's try a mental stunt. Strap a light pulse between two mirrors like a hyperactive firefly in an elevator. When the elevator rests, the firefly boings straight up and down. One tick, up, down, clap. When the elevator whooshes sideways, the firefly traces a diagonal zigzag. Longer path, same light speed, longer tick. You didn't sabotage the firefly. You didn't stretch the mirrors. You stretched what you thought one tick meant. The elevator groans. Your intuition files for reconsideration. A small confession. We love to say, "Time slows down," because it sounds dramatic and sells t-shirts. Really, your proper time, your personal mileage through space-time, just runs differently from someone else's. Think of two hikers on different trails. Each swears their steps were normal. Compare their pedometers at the rendezvous, and one has fewer steps. Did their legs move slower? No. They took a different path. The step count isn't mood. It's geometry with opinions. If you want a shortcut to immortality, there's technically a plan. Build a ship, ride it near light speed, come back and meet everyone's grandkids. Congratulations. You hacked the calendar by eating your own minutes. You didn't extend life. You reallocated it. You cashed in present for future scenery. That's the bargain. Breathtaking, ruthless, negotiable only with fuel and nerve. For more content, like the video, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from. The monitors in the control room stop screaming, but the data on the screen refuses to behave like common sense, and that's when someone notices the other display that doesn't agree either.
The second monitor isn't wrong. It's loyal to a different boss. On its screen, a simulation of billiard balls obeys Newton like he's the gym teacher with a whistle. No attitude, no drama. Time, in that world, is a universal stadium clock ticking above the field, same seconds for everyone, even that kid who never ties his shoes. Push a ball, it moves. Double the push, double the speed. Add 2 speeds, you get a bigger speed, just like stacking pizzas on a plate. Galilean addition makes the universe feel like a polite spreadsheet. In Newton's scheme, time flows uniformly, equably, if we want to sound like we powdered a wig this morning. Every tick is identical, whether you're napping or bobsledding. That's comforting. It's also the kind of comfort you get from a fake customer service response. You feel heard right up until physics hangs up on you. Enter 19th century electromagnetism, wearing a cape made of equations. Maxwell unifies electricity and magnetism into 4 compact laws that treat light as a self-propagating electromagnetic wave. No crystal bowl. No jam jar of luminiferous fairy dust. A wave that moves in vacuum with speed c is almost equal to 299,792,458 meters per second. Not around that, not depending on your mood, but a fixed value buried inside the math like a secret ingredient. That number isn't a suggestion, it's the chef's knife. If you sharpen it, the kitchen changes. Now collide that with Galilean velocity addition. If a train shoots light forward, Newton's commuter expects to see the light going c plus v, speed on speed. That's how baseballs work, and baseballs are very persuasive. But Maxwell's equations refuse the remix. They keep spitting out c for everyone, like a DJ who only owns one track and still sells out the club. Either the equations are lying, or your intuition is that friend who promises to pay you back on Tuesday. To save intuition, physicists invented a backdrop, the ether. Think of it as a cosmic syrup that waves could wiggle through. If light needed a medium, then maybe you could measure your motion against it like a breeze through your hair, except the hair is a spectrometer. This wasn't just romantic, it was testable. Michelson and Morley built an interferometer in 1887 to catch Earth's ether wind. The device split light into two paths, recombined them, and watched for fringes to shift as the planet sailed through space. If the ether existed, one beam would ride the breeze while the other cut across it. The result would wobble like a shopping cart with a cursed wheel. They found zilch. No wind. No drift. Just a universe looking back with a neutral expression. The apparatus was sensitive enough to notice a fruit fly's opinion, yet the fringes barely flinched. The ether became that roommate who never pays rent and also doesn't exist. You can't evict a ghost. You can only rethink the lease. Lorentz and Poincaré stepped in like clever tailors. They patched Newton's coat with transformations that shrank lengths and slowed times for moving systems, purely as a trick to rescue the ether from embarrassment. The Lorentz factor gamma pops out of their sewing kit. Things contract along the direction of motion, clocks lag by a factor, equations survive, reputation saved, party continues. But the philosophy stayed old school. The ether lingered as the shy host nobody sees. Everything worked on paper, like those budgets where avocado toast ruins nothing and rent pays itself. The fix felt mechanical. It looked like the universe was gaslighting us with rulers that change size and clocks that get stage fright. Convenient. Ugly. Like covering a structural crack with motivational stickers. It silenced the instrument without addressing the tune. Einstein appears in 1905, and the first thing he does is stop apologizing for the math. He takes two ideas and writes them on the board like rules of a game we've been playing wrong. Rule 1. The laws of physics are the same in all inertial frames. No special seat. No VIP table for ether. Rule 2. The speed of light in vacuum is the same for every inertial observer, no matter who's moving or who's standing still. That's not a preference, that's a referee's call. He doesn't say clocks misbehave. He says our bookkeeping mislabels reality. If those rules are non-negotiable, something else has to flex. Length and time volunteer, like interns trying to impress. Distances depend on your motion. Durations depend on your motion. Simultaneity, our sacred belief that two things can happen at the same time, evaporates when observers move relative to each other. Two lightning strikes that sync perfectly for a bystander won't line up for someone zipping past on a train. Not because lightning gets petty, but because slicing spacetime into now and not now is a local art project, not a global policy. This isn't a philosophical prank. It's geometry. Space and time merge into spacetime, and the Lorentz transformations become the proper rulers for measuring blocks in that four-dimensional warehouse. You don't stretch objects, you rotate perspective. Your whoa, time slowed down, is another person's perfectly ordinary wristwatch doing wristwatch things, measured on a skewed slice through the warehouse. The metric, the way you compute distances in this weird furniture store, demands the invariant speed c, so it protects it like a bouncer protects the stage. Newton's absolute time cracks right where Maxwell planted c. Keep absolute time, and you break light. Keep light, and you break absolute time. Einstein chooses the option that matches data and throws away the wig powder. He kills off the ether by not inviting it to the meeting. He turns Lorentz's ad hoc tailoring into a native dress code. He puts simultaneity on a leash and hands you a new map with speed limits that are baked into the asphalt. If you've ever tried to coordinate a group chat across time zones, you already know simultaneity is fragile. Someone types now, and half the group reads yesterday evening. Relativity just scales that chaos to cosmic commutes. Trains, planes, and light beams all keep honest time inside their own frame. Argue across frames, and you need conversions. Forget the conversions, and you miss your flight by a century. The surprising part is how quickly the math pays rent. You can derive length contraction and time dilation from the postulates without pleading with gears or springs. You line up events, transform coordinates, and outdrop predictions testable with clocks, particles, and cranky satellites. The universe stops feeling like a haunted mansion and starts feeling like a city with one traffic rule enforced by very serious cops. Nothing outpaces light. Speed tickets are written in seconds and meters, not paper slips. Suddenly, the second monitor in our control room isn't disagreeing. It's reporting from a neighborhood where the clocks file different taxes. Newton's neighborhood is quiet, friendly, great schools, slow traffic. Maxwell's Boulevard is a 6-lane with a light beam barreling through at a speed limit nobody can exceed. Einstein installs the signage so nobody argues with the cop. The room doesn't calm down. It adjusts. Someone lowers the Newton monitor's brightness. Someone else pulls up a diagram of an interferometer. The intern asks what simultaneity means and gets 3 answers, all correct in their own postal codes. The coffee machine gurgles like a tiny black hole trying to swallow a mug, and on the far wall, a countdown starts for a demonstration nobody wants to watch without better clamps. The countdown hits 0, and the clamps groan like a budget airline seat. On the cart, 2 skateboards, a laser, and an intern in lab goggles that look suspiciously like party favors. House rule, sharp it on a post-it. If an idea can't survive wheels and a laser pointer, it doesn't deserve an equation. The intern pushes off. The laser fires. The big screen pays out data like a slot machine that only dispenses headaches. First fact slams down. The laws of physics are identical in every smooth riding frame. Translation. If you're drifting straight with no spins or bumps, the universe doesn't care whether you're couch surfing or carving the hallway. Sarcastic punchline. The cosmos is less fickle than your streaming app, which drops quality the instant you blink. Move the story. The intern rolls, keeps the laser pulsing, and the photodiode behaves exactly like it did when he stood still. Newtonian smugness starts to stretch its legs, right until the second fact pile drives it. Second fact doesn't do gentle. The speed of light in empty space is the same for everyone cruising steadily. No coupons, no bundle deals, no friends and family plan. Chase the beam, run from it, name it Brad and invite it to prom. It still zips past you at the same pace. Sarcastic punchline. Light is that friend who never changes plans, and somehow you're the flaky one. Move the story. The screen stamps 2 times. One for the lab, one for the skateboard. And they won't reconcile with just add velocities arithmetic. The DJ has 1 track, labeled speed of light, and hits repeat with a grin. You can't keep both facts without pruning your intuition like a hedge that thinks it's a tree. So spacetime updates the bookkeeping. Distances and durations get frame labels, like luggage plastered in airport stickers. A meter is not a peace treaty. It's a contract with a traveler. A second isn't an anthem. It's a local jingle. Sarcastic punchline. Your wristwatch is a regional currency, adorable at home, useless abroad unless you bring an exchange table. Move the story. A grad student rolls in a whiteboard, draws time upward and space sideways, and marks the speed of light as reality's steepest allowable slope. Nobody gasps. Nods all around, like they saw it on TikTok yesterday. Now we pick a fight with at the same time. 2 flashbulbs pop at opposite ends of a long track. For someone resting with the track, the flashes are simultaneous. Their light arrives together from equal distances. Happy symmetry. For the skateboarder, the front flash's light runs toward him. The rear flash's light chases him. Same light speed, different travel times. Sarcastic punchline. At the same time now means according to whom, which is also the correct response to most group chats. Move the story. Photodiodes on each bulb timestamp the arrivals, and the code tallies a mismatch that would make a referee reach for both a rulebook and a therapist. The rulebook is the transformation that trades coordinates between steady frames, but today it's in street clothes. You translate one rider's map to another's with two inputs: the relative speed and the sacred speed of light. Time in one mix and matches with space in the other, like espresso swirling into milk. Sarcastic punchline. Your lunch hour secretly contains hallway. Move the story. We dial in a fast car speed. Nothing heroic, and the computer spits out new time and place stamps where the rear flash counts as earlier and the front flash as later. No explosions, sadly. The math shrugs and keeps the drywall clean. Someone asks for a light clock because mirrors soothe people. We doodle two mirrors separated by a fixed gap and a photon doing cardio between them. In its own rest, one tick is just up and down travel. Slide the whole clock sideways and the photon's path becomes a diagonal zigzag. Same light speed, longer path per tick, longer tick. Sarcastic punchline. You didn't sabotage the clock, you made geometry wear heels. Move the story. The triangle geometry hands you the familiar stretch factor. Yes, the one that swells with speed like a rumor at a family reunion. Ticks get longer in the lab's reading. The clock isn't lazy. Your slice through space-time is nosy. Bystanders object on cue. From the skateboard, the lab clock looks slow too. Correct, and nobody calls the cops because reciprocity is legal. Each steady rider claims normality and accuses the other of weirdness. Sarcastic punchline. This is every internet argument, except here both sides actually have receipts. Move the story. The receipts are world lines, paths on the time-space diagram, and the personal time each clock accrues rides along like odometer clicks. You add up those clicks, not vibes, and geometry, not opinion, decides who logged more between shared reunions. With no acceleration, nobody can force a confession. Add acceleration and the ticket book comes out, heavy pens and all. Back to the floor. The skateboard glides, the laser keeps tagging, and we add one more twist. If light's speed won't budge, then measuring rods aligned with motion must read shorter when judged from the other frame. Length contraction isn't a diet, it's a camera angle imposed by the rules. Sarcastic punchline. The universe tilts the lens and tells you to work your good side. Move the story. Project the moving meter stick onto the labs, now slice, and the number trims by the same stretch factors reciprocal. It's not suffering. It's complying so nobody tries to outrun a photon on paper. Energy and momentum smell the party and show up. To keep light's speed sacred and collisions honest, their ledgers get the same coordinate makeover. There's a particular combo of energy and momentum that every steady rider agrees on. Call it the group secret that somehow never leaks. Sarcastic punchline. The old mass times velocity momentum was an early access beta. The updated version with the stretch factor is the unstable release you still trust more. Move the story. Particle accelerators live on that upgrade. Pumping until the stretch factor devours the budget and actual speed creeps toward light's pace like a cat approaching bathwater. Meanwhile, the control room looks like a budget skate park, and the data feed looks like an angry crossword. In one corner, a physicist angles two perfectly synchronized cameras to nail simultaneity's mood swings again, because nobody believes anything until a hard drive wheezes. Each camera is flawless in its own frame and infuriating across the aisle. Sarcastic punchline. It's filming a concert from the pit and the balcony, then arguing about the downbeat. The drummer insists both are right and throws a stick. Move the story. The timestamps refuse peace until we feed the software the relative speed and that stretch factor like snacks. Here's the uncomfortable blessing. The two core rules aren't exotic. They're modest and written in permanent marker. Keep them intact and slower clocks aren't scandal. They're spreadsheet properties. Keep them intact and simultaneity is a local ordinance, not a federal law. Sarcastic punchline. The cosmos is a federation, not a monarchy. Local clocks elect their own councils, and nobody RSVPs to your meeting unless you transform the invite. Move the story. The intern breaks, wheels chirp, the laser finally blinks out, but the whiteboard stays warm with arrows from the speed of light to the stretch factor to those stubborn, tilted now slices that won't align without a mathematical crowbar. People glance at their phones. Not for messages, but because they've just remembered those rectangles navigate the planet by trusting these same rules. It's like learning your apartment is held up by dental floss. Sarcastic punchline. It works, it's precise, and one firmware hiccup from sending you to a lake you didn't mean to visit. Move the story. A fresh cart rolls in with taller mirrors, a longer baseline, and a speed slider that makes the wheels nervous, and the room inhales like it wants the air to last longer than the next measurement. The speed slider clicks higher, and the wheels squeal like they just read the warranty. On the monitor, the code stops being coy and finally blurts the relation we've been circling like nervous pigeons. Moving clocks rack up fewer ticks than clocks sitting still relative to the measuring setup. Fact. The lab records a longer gap between the same two blips when the cart rolls fast. Punchline. Your schedule didn't get busier. Your seconds got stingy. Move it. We nail the idea to the wall so nobody can claim it winked. Say it clean. The lab's time between the blips is a fixed multiple of the traveler's own time between those blips. That multiple has a name, gamma. The traveler's time is proper time. The time a clock measures along its own ride, like odometer clicks for a life. Sarcastic jab. It's the only timestamp that doesn't need a translator, which is why it never brags. Forward. Define the factor before someone decides it's just a vibe. Gamma is the stretch factor that keeps light's speed from getting mangled by your arithmetic. It sits at 1 when you're lazy, grows as you get spicy, and races toward absurdly large as you nose toward the speed of light, like a toddler approaching bedtime. Loud, unreasonable, and not negotiating. Punchline. You can creep toward light speed like a cat toward a bathtub, carefully and suspiciously, and gamma will test your patience. Move. We plug numbers before anyone starts doing philosophy near power tools. Take a nice round case, 80% of light speed. Then gamma is about 1.667. 1 hour on the skateboard's wrist turns into roughly an hour 40 on the lab's gossip clock. Fact. The traveler swears they lived 3,600 seconds. The lab swears 6,000 seconds passed. Punchline. Both expense reports are correct. The auditor is geometry. Onward. Someone asks whether the traveler felt slow. We hand them the coffee pot and say, "Refill, please." The traveler's own time doesn't sag. Proper time is the stopwatch taped to your chest. It doesn't care how fast you're moving. It just counts how your path tilts through space-time. Punchline. If your watch complains, it needs a battery, not a lecture. Move. The room sketches a world line, time vertical, space horizontal, and marks 2 reunion pins on the corkboard. The straight, unaccelerated path between them collects the most personal seconds. Bend the path with speed changes or acceleration, and you shave off ticks like a barber with opinions. Someone whispers paradox, because the internet trains habits the way cats train humans. We enforce grammar. Perfect reciprocity during steady motion isn't a contradiction. It's a symmetry, until you compare reunited paths. Punchline. Who aged less? Isn't a debate during the trip. It's a receipt when the doors open. Forward. The board gets busy with little right triangles and a calm sentence about adding up proper time along the route. No chanting. Just chalk dust and the smell of victory tacos we have not earned. Anchor it with a test accountant's like. 2 ultra-stable oscillators start together. One rides the cart at steady speed. The other sulks on the bench beneath an angry plant. The frequency counter says the moving one runs slow. Its tick rate is the bench rate divided by gamma. Fact. The same factor that stretches durations trims frequencies. Punchline. The universe does bundle deals. Who knew? Move. We log data as the speed ramps up in fussy increments and the points snuggle into the 1/gamma curve like they were paid under the table. At modest speeds, the effect hides in decimals that make statisticians smile a private smile. For the timid, a friendly hint. At low speeds, the slowdown grows roughly with the square of the speed fraction, not the speed itself. Fact. Doubling speed doesn't double drama. It quadruples it, toddlers again. Move. The crew overlays a gentle quadratic fit and pretends not to high-five because professionals pretend. A heckler asks why we treat proper time as real when everything is frame-flavored. We don't hand out moral purity to time. We hand out operational meaning. Proper time is what a single clock experiences along its own world line. No external coordination, no committee. Punchline: it's the only schedule that doesn't require a group calendar named chaos. Move: we point at a wristwatch, a heartbeat, a particle decay, a spin precession. Each a metronome of proper time that couldn't care less about your spreadsheet until you compare notes at shared events. Want intuition that won't lie to you? Picture space-time as terrain where world lines have a length everyone agrees on, even if they disagree about time and space separately. In that terrain, the straight inertial stroll between two meetups hoards the most personal seconds. Punchline: inertia doesn't just resist change, it stockpiles minutes. Move: we circle the invariant space-time distance on the board like it's the last donut and nobody wants to be first. Someone reaches for rockets because tables on wheels are cute until you want numbers with kilojoules. Fact: as your speed creeps toward light speed, more push mostly fattens gamma rather than your actual MPH. The needle crawls, the time stretch balloons. Punchline: you're not buying more speed, you're buying more time stretch per gallon. Move: we translate that into energy, gamma times mass times the square of light speed. And the budget sheet turns that judgmental color your accounting software reserves for regret. Inside the cart, the oscillator hums unbothered. From the lab, its tones are lazy. Inside the cart, the lab's tones are lazy. Mutual accusations, zero hypocrisy. Each observer slices space-time into now planes at different angles. Punchline: your present is a tilted cutting board. Keep fingers clear. Move: we draw two simultaneity slices and watch the same events wear different timestamp stickers without a single event caring about our existential crisis. Practical detour that isn't a detour. If you run navigation, trading, or science on synchronized networks, you either feed gamma into your pipeline or you buy rubber boots for the flood of error. Fact: nanoseconds map to feet, microseconds map to city blocks. Punchline: time zones are social constructs. Nanoseconds are invoices. Move: a tech flips up a panel showing the live correction that shaves off the small difference so channels stay in phase. You can ignore it the way you ignore gravity stepping off a curb. A hand goes up. If metabolism is a clock, do I age slower at high speed? Yes, by the same factor as everything else shackled to your world line. You don't feel it because you are the clock. Punchline: the chef can't taste too much salt if the chef is the salt. Move: the room imagines a near light-speed cruise where movies are shorter, songs are punchier, and layovers are externally controversial. Someone calculates fuel again, then closes the spreadsheet like a guilty secret. Run one more pass at 95% of light speed. Gamma lands a bit above 3.2. The moving clock's tick rate drops to roughly 1/3 from the lab's perspective, crisp as a slap. Fact: the scaling is smooth. No cliff, no surprise plateau. Punchline: the only cliff here is your budget. Move: the curve lights up clean and a hush settles. Not reverence, just the collective awareness that the next knob we twist will braid time with space, so tightly the clamps will look decorative. The clamps rattle like drumsticks, the room lights dip, and someone wheels in an absurd contraption. Two flawless mirrors facing each other in a carbon fiber frame, a minimalist toaster for photons. A laser clears its throat and locks to a single pulse ping-ponging between the mirrors. Fact: a light clock counts ticks by letting one photon bounce a fixed distance between two mirrors. Punchline: it's a Fitbit for beams, except it never forgets leg day. Move it. We zero the counter and watch the glare ricochet in smug silence. On the bench, at rest, one tick is simple: up, down, done. That round-trip time depends only on how far apart the mirrors are and how fast light travels. No gears, no springs, just geometry with a cardio habit. Fact: the tick length is set by mirror spacing and light speed, nothing else. Punchline: the universe built a clock that can't lie, which is why it's banned from poker night. Move: the intern cinches the frame, and the photodiode stamps ticks like a metronome with a mortgage. Now we throw the whole clock sideways on a track and push it to a steady speed. The photon still bounces between mirrors, but the frame slides while it travels. Fact: from the lab's view, the photon has to take a diagonal path between mirrors because the mirrors scoot sideways mid-bounce. Punchline: You didn't make the photon late, you made the elevator move. Move. We kill the chatter so the geometry can testify without committee edits. Picture a triangle for half a tick. The vertical side is the mirror gap. The horizontal side is how far the clock slides during that half tick. The slanted side is the photon's path. The slanted side must be longer than the gap, but the photon refuses to exceed light speed, so the half tick takes longer. Double it for a full tick, longer again. Fact: the only way to reconcile the diagonal path with the unbudging speed of light is to stretch the moving tick by a specific factor. Punchline: you didn't slow the mechanism, you stretched the tick with triangles. Move: someone in the back whispers witchcraft and gets handed a protractor. This isn't a mercy rule for lousy machines. The light clock is as fundamental as it gets because every honest clock can be built from signals and separations. Fact: if the speed of light is the same for all unaccelerated observers, then every honest clock slows by the same stretch factor when it moves. Punchline: if one clock cheats, it snitches on the photon, and the photon has an airtight alibi. Move: we roll out a second clock with microwave cavities, and its counter droops by the exact same stretch factor, like it practiced the routine. Couldn't the mirrors just deform? Cute. We mounted the frame on flexure stages and checked the spacing with a stabilized interferometer. No squish, no tilt, no drama. Fact: mechanical excuses are out, geometric necessity is in. Punchline: relativity doesn't accept my dog ate my homework, even from precision hardware. Move: the graph of period versus speed bends along the predicted curve with the kind of obedience you only get from equations and very well-trained border collies. A skeptic insists the diagonal path is just perspective. Fine, here's a skateboard and a GoPro. In the clock's own frame, the photon goes straight up and down with the same benchtop tick. No diagonals anywhere. Fact: the time a clock measures along its own ride, its proper time, is what it reads at rest with itself. Other observers reading from the side get a longer tick by the stretch factor. Punchline: inside the elevator the ping is vertical. Outside, your eyes do trigonometry against their will. Move: we play the feeds side by side, one vertical heartbeat, one diagonal marathon, and nobody complains because both are right where they live. Now stack clocks. Put the light clock next to a cesium fountain and next to a quartz diva that panics about temperature. Accelerate the cart to 9/10 of light speed. Fact: all three drift by the same factor in the lab's readout. Punchline: even drama queens respect the stretch when their reputations are at stake. Move: the frequency comb measures the offsets and prints a receipt suitable for framing in a photon's home office. We nudge the speed higher and add a twist. Tilt the light clock so the photon's bounce has some component along the direction of motion. If your escape plan is angles fix it, get comfy. Fact: when you account for light moving at the same speed in all directions within each observer's view, the same stretch factor pops out again. Punchline: geometry doesn't grant early release for clever rotations. Move: the model coughs up the familiar square rootish behavior. Yes, we're pointedly not writing it. The data nod, and the intern gets a cookie for effort. Edge poking, because we're thorough. The photon has to hit a mirror that's sliding, so its aim adjusts in just the right way to keep landing on the glass. Fact: the angle you measure depends on who's writing with the clock and who's watching from the lab, and those angles reshape exactly so the bounces keep lining up. Punchline: the photon does the trigonometry faster than your calculator and never asks for batteries. Move: we sketch the angles, and somewhere in the lines the diagonal refuses to apologize for existing. Make it sting with numbers. Set the mirror gap to 0.5 meters and run the cart at 99% of light speed. The rest frame tick is about 3.33 nanoseconds. The moving tick, as seen from the lab, is longer by roughly a factor of 7.09, landing near 23.6 nanoseconds. Fact: about 7 times longer between bounces from the lab's perspective. Punchline: the photon didn't get lazy. Your slice of time stretched like warm taffy. Move: the oscilloscope trace fattens exactly where the calculator said it would, and everyone's eyebrows take the scenic route upward. If the diagonal path got longer while the speed limit stayed fixed, Something had to give in the count of ticks during a fixed lab interval. Fact: fewer ticks fit into the same lab span when the clock moves. Punchline: sprint and your calendar sheds seconds like a nervous hedgehog sheds dignity. Move: we let the cart loop the room, count ticks, and compare against a bench clock. The ledger lines don't scream, they shrug, which is somehow louder. One last dodge. Maybe the photon sped up along the diagonal. Adorable. The invariance of light speed is the line we drew in permanent marker. Fact: keeping light speed the same for everyone forces the diagonal to be longer without any speed boost, which forces each tick to stretch. Punchline: when the speed limit won't budge, the commute lengthens. Ask anyone who moved to the suburbs for more space. Move: flip the logic, pretend the tick didn't stretch, and you're forced into a light speed that depends on direction. The room groans like you just proposed dial-up for a data center. The clock turns into a Rosetta Stone. It translates go faster into fewer ticks without a registry of excuses. Fact: because any clock can be modeled with signals and separations, the light clock argument drags every timekeeper into the same geometry. Punchline: you can glue feathers on your watch and call it special. It still speaks fluent photon. Move: the array hums, the counters lock, and the triangles on the board lean at angles that make intuitive time look like a rumor with good PR. We power down the laser to swap in a shorter cavity, and the silence leaves a cutout in the air, as if the room is holding its breath for the next cart, the one that cares about more than motion and rolls in wearing a gravity sticker nobody should ignore. The gravity sticker cart barely stops before someone blurts the question that stalks every physics Q&A like a raccoon near a picnic. What about the twins? Fact: one twin stays home and waters plants. The other straps into a rocket, floors it to a ridiculous fraction of light speed, flips around somewhere past the postcards, and comes back fresher than a refrigerated grape. Punchline: it's the only family reunion where jet lag literally erases birthdays. Move: we tape name tags on 2 precision clocks and make one of them earn frequent flyer miles. On the launch pad, the traveler's clock purrs, the home clock purrs, and nobody feels weird because each clock only compares itself to itself. Fact: time along your own ride never feels stretched. Your biology is synchronized with your itinerary. Punchline: you are the drumbeat, which is a great gig until accounting asks to see both ledgers. Move: engines light, the ship sprints, and the home twin watches the calendar shed pages like a nervous tree. Mid-flight, the traveler sees Earth's whole life shove into a fast-forward montage, while meals on board remain ordinary length. Fact: from inside the ship, outside events cram into shorter spans because your definition of simultaneous elsewhere tilts with your motion. Punchline: the universe didn't install a fast-forward button for you. It rearranged which slices of now you call yours. Move: the ship burns again to reverse course, and the quiet part nobody likes to say out loud walks in wearing a high-visibility vest. Acceleration breaks the standoff. Fact: when the traveler whips around, they leave one steady frame and climb into another. That switch is not just a mood swing. It's a physical detour that stains the itinerary with non-inertial ink. Punchline: you can't call dibs on being the normal one while you're stapled to a rocket seat. Move: the ship coasts home in a new steady frame, eyes still on the prize of a face-to-face timestamp reconciliation that won't read like a tie. Think of time like distance in a strange city where some streets count more than others. Fact: the length of a life path through space-time, what physicists call proper time, isn't just minutes on a wall clock. It's the mileage your world line racks up between 2 meetings, weighted by how hard you veer through space and time. Punchline: straight, steady cruising through time collects the most ticks, like taking the express with no transfers. Detours and hard turns shave seconds like a barber with fast hands. Move: the twin who stayed planted at home took the straightest path between goodbye and hello, which in this geometry hoards the most living. If you want to do it with calculus without scaring the neighbors, you add up little dollops of time along each path with a square-rooty weighting that punishes high speed and punishes gravity wells. Fact: every tiny segment contributes, and the rocket's especially spicy segments contribute less per unit of lab time. Punchline: You paid for speed with seconds, and the receipt prints one digit at a time during each burn. Move. You don't need to stare at integrals to get the logic. You only need to respect that different routes through spacetime don't rack up the same hours. Hold up, says a skeptic polishing their glasses. During the coasting parts, each twin sees the other's clock running slow. Isn't that a stalemate? Only until the ship pivots. Fact. Symmetric stories break at the turnaround because only one twin felt rockets and saw the stars bulge toward the new front window. Punchline. If only one person felt their internal organs disagree with the seating chart, you've found the asymmetry. Move. That sudden flip reshuffles which distant events line up with now on the ship, and that reshuffle dumps an extra pile of Earth years into the home twins column with bureaucratic indifference. Visualize it with a space-time diagram instead of pain. Fact. Draw time upward, space sideways, sketch the home twins' path as a near vertical line, and the traveler's path as two tilted lines joined by a sharp corner. Punchline. The corner is where your life path elbows reality and your watch loses the argument. Move. Measure the length of those paths using the proper metric, and the straight column wins by an amount that matches the birthday gap at reunion, which is exactly the kind of petty triumph siblings bring up for decades. This isn't a gotcha, it's bookkeeping. Fact. Inertial motion alone doesn't tell you who ages less. It's the whole itinerary, including frame changes, that writes the outcome in ink. Punchline. Time is fair in the way tax code is fair, consistent, merciless, not concerned with your feelings. Move. The lesson lands in engineering too, because every satellite you use for navigation lives on a path that must be adjusted for both speed and altitude, or your directions will send you into a pond with confidence. Let's pour numbers without flaunting equations. Say the traveler spends a handful of years rocketing near light speed, turns around fast, then cruises back the same way. Fact. Even if the outbound and inbound coasts mirror each other, the pivot cements the asymmetry, and the final tab comes up short for the traveler by years, not minutes, at extreme speeds. Punchline. Imagine skipping a decade of pop culture and returning to discover people ironically love cargo shorts again. Move. The home twins' laugh lines widened while the traveler's playlists barely changed, and neither can claim fraud because both clocks remained faithful to their routes. What about gravity sneaking into the mix? Tempting, but hold off. Fact. Even in flat, gravity-free thought experiments, the twin gap arrives on schedule. Rockets alone can settle it. Punchline. You don't need a black hole to argue at Thanksgiving. A decent engine will do. Move. Gravity will eventually demand equal airtime, but for the moment the lab smells like hot bearings and the traveler's chair has those permanent dents that mean invoices are coming. A pedant pipes up with the classic trap. Couldn't the traveler just say Earth accelerated away and back, so Earth should be younger? Cute, but no. Fact. The traveler occupies a single localized world line and can feel genuine non-inertial forces during the turnaround. Earth doesn't hop frames relative to Earth. The planet just keeps twirling and minding its taxes. Punchline. You can't outsource your acceleration paperwork to the rest of the universe. Move. Inertial sensors aboard the ship could have flagged the pivot without peeking outside, which means the asymmetry isn't a social construct, it's a bruise. If you want receipts that involve hardware instead of siblings, beam 2 atomic clocks into planes. One eastbound, one westbound, one left sulking on a countertop with bad coffee. Fact. When they meet again, the sky clocks disagree with the desk clock in precise, predictable ways that combine speed effects and gravity effects without asking permission. Punchline. Time is petty and itemizes every surcharge. The invoice just needs sensitive equipment to read the fine print. Move. The room glances at the gravity sticker cart because the next set of corrections doesn't care how fast you go. It cares how deep you sit in a gravitational well. The traveler disembarks in our thought lab, cheeks exactly as smug as the math allowed, and the home twin pretends not to count laughter lines in a window reflection while the data logger ticks. Fact. The gap is small at airline speeds, medium in orbits, ridiculous for rockets that flirt with the light limit. Punchline. Immortality by velocity is technically available if you don't mind leaving everyone's calendar behind like a forgotten plant in a dorm kitchen. Move. A fresh crate arrives with equipment that bends beams around dense masses, and the sticker on the crate reads like a warning label written by a mountain. The crate pops open and the lab coughs up new toys. Photomultiplier tubes, vacuum chambers, a magnet shaped like a horseshoe on protein powder. Fact: if time dilation is real, particles that normally die young should party longer when they sprint. Punchline: physics is the only field where your children lived longer because they ran away from home reads like a success metric. Move: we will in the muon tank because muons are nature's self-destructing interns, born from cosmic ray crashes high in the atmosphere, carrying stopwatches that usually quit after a few microblinks. At walking speed, a muon barely makes it out of its birth cloud. At a speed that kisses light's limit, those same muons slice through kilometers of air and smack our detectors on the ground like they paid for VIP. Fact: their inborn lifetime stretches in our frame, so more of them survive the trip. Punchline: when your commute gets shorter without new roads, check your clock, not your shoes. Move: the counters light up like a pinball machine, and the histogram of arrival time swells where pure Newton would have handed us a cliff. We raise the stakes with storage rings, circular tracks for unstable particles that hate waiting rooms. Fact: pump ions or mesons to ridiculous speeds, hold them with magnetic fields, and count how many laps they make before they blink out. Punchline: the ring is basically a particle theme park where the ride extends because time's wristwatch is set to leisurely. Move: the decay curves stretch exactly by the Lorentz factor predicted from speed, not by vibes, not by wishful grant writing, by the cold agreement between detectors and that square root thing we won't draw on the board because we respect your eyeballs. A voice asks for clocks you could actually hold without a hazmat suit. Enter the rollaboard suitcase full of atomic clocks. Fact: in the early 70s, a team flew cesium clocks east and west on passenger jets while a control clock sulked in a lab. Punchline: it's the pettiest airline loyalty program. Redeem miles for nanoseconds. Move: after landing, the airborne clocks didn't match the desk clock, and they didn't match each other either. Eastbound lost ticks mostly to speed. Westbound lost fewer because Earth helped them chase the sunrise like overachievers. The tally matched special relativity for motion and general relativity for height within the limits of shag carpet-era instrumentation, which is the most 70s sentence a lab can produce without disco. We crack open modern gear because it's rude to let the 70s have all the glory. Fact: today's optical lattice clocks are so stable they pout if a vibrating ant sneezes across the street. Punchline: a good one can tell you your heartbeat is late by a few hundredths of a billionth of a second and then ask you to hydrate. Move: set two of them a few centimeters apart in altitude, and the higher one runs faster because gravity loosens its grip up there. That's gravity's take on time dilation, elbowing into a segment about speed like it owns the place. But back to motion, because your navigation app lives or dies on it. Fact: satellites zip around Earth fast enough and high enough that their clocks don't share our pace. Engineers pre-bias those clocks at launch so that once they're in orbit, where speed slows them and weaker gravity speeds them, the net drift lands on a knife edge near zero. Punchline: your phone works because someone gaslit a space clock on purpose. Move: if those corrections vanished, your map would send you to a swamp by lunchtime and swear it's an artisanal bistro. We pull a fiber spool out of another crate like a magician dragging scarves. Fact: time transfer networks lace continents with glass strands, bouncing femtosecond pulses between labs to synchronize clocks better than most people synchronize brunch. Punchline: humans can't agree on pizza toppings, but two clocks half a continent apart can whisper like twin spies. Move: every long link corrects for Earth's rotation, the relative motion of endpoints, and even the tiny velocity you get by letting a server rack vibrate near a freeway. The corrections wear suits and carry briefcases labeled relativity, and the audit is merciless. A student suggests a sportier test. We oblige and strap a compact clock to a race car. Fact: sustained high speed makes the onboard seconds lag behind the pit wall, tiny but measurable if your gear isn't from a toy aisle. Punchline: the driver returns with 2 trophies, one for lap time, one for physics flex. Move: The data overlay bites into the exact curve you expect from the speed profile, and the crowd sighs the way people sigh when the magician pulls out a rabbit, and it's actually a rabbit. We still haven't bullied the doubters with enough variety, so we bring in an ion trap where charged atoms hover above electrodes like snooty bees. Fact: give them a kick, let them oscillate, and compare their internal ticks to sedentary siblings. Punchline: the lab invented jet lag for atoms and charged admission. Move: the moving ions hold back their beats by the predicted factor, and the control ions smirk like grandparents. Someone grumbles that all these experiments are complicated and messy, which is adorable, so we offer a backyard version with a twist. Fact: relativistic effects creep in even when a person walks briskly with a good wristwatch, too small for most budgets but squarely inside modern metrology. Punchline: take a fitness walk and shave picoseconds off your day. It's skincare for time, not recommended for relationships. Move: the ultra-precise comparison gear nods along, and suddenly strolling with a clock looks like performance art for nerds. Fine, one more with flair. We wheel in a cloud chamber and pump it full of chilled vapor. Fact: cosmic ray muons carve bright lines as they zip through, each line a signature of a particle that should have died higher up. Punchline: it's a fireworks show thrown by corpses who refuse to meet their deadlines. Move: the streaks cascade like a meteor shower in miniature, and every surviving track spells the same story. High speed buys longevity when observed from our frame, and no amount of eyebrow-raising cancels the receipt. None of this works without a single speed limit baked into reality. Fact: all evidence clings to one speed for light in vacuum, no matter who's moving or how you squint at it. Punchline: it's the only rule the universe enforces like a bouncer with a clipboard and a black belt. Move: once that rule stands, your only way to keep causality tidy is to let time trade flexibility for consistency, and experiments keep batting the same average on different pitches. The control room, now a jungle of cables and labels, glows with a smug confidence that only arrives when many ways of being wrong fail in different languages. Fact: muons agree, rings agree, planes agree, satellites agree, optical clocks agree, racers agree. If there's a conspiracy, it's doing more paperwork than a government office. Punchline: the only alleged hoax that requires calibrations across 3 continents and several species of particle is reality. Move: the gravity sticker gear that's been eyeing us from its crate gets unboxed with the kind of careful silence people use around wild animals, because bending space with mass has opinions about clocks that make the speed tricks look like practice. The gravity sticker gear sits on the bench like a kettle that brews headaches. We bolt a compact atomic clock to a tripod, hoist a twin clock up a staircase, and wire them to a frequency comb that gossips in picoseconds. Fact: the upstairs clock runs a little faster than the downstairs clock. Punchline: climb for cardio, stay for extra time. Your smartwatch owes you interest. Move: the display nudges apart by a few parts in a quadrillion, and the room suddenly treats altitude like a bank account. Deeper in a gravitational well, seconds come out stingy. Higher up, they loosen. Fact: gravity doesn't just pull on mass, it leans on time, making low places tick slow. Punchline: valleys are discount stores for minutes, mountains are luxury boutiques for seconds. Move: we log the difference over a day and watch the plot wander exactly the way general relativity said it would during a coffee-fueled century of predictions. No chalk blizzard needed, just one sentence you can repeat at dinner. The rate of a clock depends on gravitational potential as a small correction roughly equal to that potential divided by light speed squared. Fact: Earth's potential is negative and cozy, which means basement seconds drag their feet while rooftop seconds put on rollerblades. Punchline: the elevator is a time machine that charges rent. Move: we lift the lower clock onto a rolling cart, ride it up 3 floors, and the 2 frequencies cozy back together like siblings who discovered the thermostat. If you want a photon's eye view, give it a job. Launch light from the basement toward the roof. Fact: climbing out of gravity drains energy from the photon's color. It emerges redder than it started. Punchline: stairs tire even light, which is rude considering it weighs nothing. Move: switch direction and let light fall. It blue shifts on the way down like it stole a sprint from a sprinter. A mid-century elevator shaft in Cambridge once turned that color shift into a measurement with more attitude than funding. Fact: a team pinged gamma rays up and down a tower and used the Moosebauer effect to catch the gravitational redshift over the height of a few flights. Punchline: the universe confessed its time crime in an office building. Move: the recoil-free trickery nailed the shift, and the tower's stairs have been smug ever since. Rocket scientists hate being left out, so they threw a hydrogen maser onto a suborbital ride. Fact: the clock coasted high, time ran quicker up there, and radio downlinks sang the difference on the way home. Punchline: the first space tourist was a can of microwaves arguing with Earth about billable hours. Move: that flight stamped a checkmark next to gravitational dilation with ink that doesn't fade just because fashions change. You can test the same stunt sideways using planets as detours. Fact: when radio signals skirt a giant mass, the path lengthens in time, not just distance, because near that mass the metric makes a different bargain with seconds. Punchline: the beam is on time everywhere except near the sun, where it develops a talent for being late with receipts. Move: bounce a radar ping off Venus during solar conjunction, and it comes back fashionably delayed. Not because the dish forgot, but because space-time near the star negotiates a slower tempo. A technician hooks our bench clocks into a model of Earth that isn't a sphere, isn't smooth, and absolutely isn't polite. Fact: the planet bulges at the waist, mountains hoard potential, and the geoid, Earth's lumpy gravitational sea level. Slaloms under everything like a quilt sewn by a cartographer with a sense of humor. Punchline: your city's elevation lies. Your clock's altitude in the potential doesn't. Move: modern optical clocks are so touchy we can map gravity by time rate alone, turning timing labs into surveying tools that red mask the way stethoscopes read lungs. It's easy to give motion a trophy and forget gravity is ruder. Fact: high-speed satellites get their seconds slowed by motion but boosted by weak gravity. Both effects are predictable and add like itemized fees. Punchline: your phone's blue dot stays honest because engineers pre-scam the satellite clocks so orbit turns their lies into truth. Move: take out either correction and navigation drifts into improv theater. People fantasize about black holes because restraint is not our brand. Fact: near a black hole's lip, stationary clocks run painfully slow compared with distant clocks, with the slowness ramping up until the math pulls the emergency brake at the edge. Punchline: it's the only place where "I'll be 5 minutes" can mean "tell my grandchildren I tried." Move: from far away, infalling objects seem to freeze and fade as their light redshifts into oblivion. From their own view, they cross the edge with no cosmic drumroll, which is the kind of mismatch that keeps poets employed. Gravity does more than squeeze seconds. It twists the path of light itself, because light always takes what it thinks is a straightest route, and straightest changes meaning when mass shows up. Fact: beams bend around galaxies, forming arcs and rings that make telescopes gasp. Punchline: the cosmos photobombs itself and then blames geometry. Move: buried in those pictures is timing. The multiple images don't arrive together, because each route walks through a different tempo of space and time. Someone in the back raises a careful hand and asks, "So which clock is right?" The one you're holding is right for you. Fact: each world line carries its own proper time, and gravity and motion only decide how those times compare when paths meet again. Punchline: the universe is a bring-your-own-watch event with strict rules about reconciling tabs. Move: we haul the upstairs clock back down, compare the logs, and the difference isn't a vibe. It's a number with traceable pedigree and a habit of winning court cases in metrology. The lab drags in a centrifuge because nobody can resist extra buttons. Fact: spin a clock in a circle and centripetal acceleration piles on, but the rate shift still decomposes cleanly into speed and potential terms once you stop being dramatic and write the bookkeeping properly. Punchline: if you want a hangover for seconds, mix orbital hustle with gravitational seasoning. Move: the readout lines up with the model. The model stares back, bored, because it's used to being right since 1915. Down the hall, a team in another room hums about frame dragging, the subtle swirl of space-time from a spinning mass. Fact: Rotation tugs on local inertial frames and whispers tiny corrections into gyroscopes and orbits. Punchline: planets lint roll the vacuum and call it culture. Move: our main display keeps flashing the simple headline anyway. Deeper well, slower tick. Faster motion, slower tick. Put both on a spreadsheet or lose your spacecraft. If you're fond of analogies that bite, think of time like a river that flows quickest in the high plains and heavy with molasses in the canyon. Fact: moving fast tips your canoe upstream. Fighting the current. Living low sits you where the river is thick. Punchline: everyone is in the same watershed, nobody paddles the same speed, and the park ranger is Einstein with a citation book. Move: the room's chatter fades beneath the soft ticking of two clocks that disagree by a hair and still manage to coordinate an entire planet. We cage the tripod clock in foam, strap the travel clock into a case, and someone eyes the satellite terminal like it owes rent. Because what comes next isn't about proving a point. It's about equipment that goes haywire if this point isn't paid, and the bill arrives in nanoseconds that don't forgive rounding. The satellite terminal boots with the grace of a cat knocking over glassware. The screen flashes a cheerful world map and a threatening red banner. Clock offsets detected. Fact: your phone's blue. Only behaves because a flock of satellites whisper timestamps with nanosecond precision. Punchline: civilization runs on group projects where the students are in orbit and refuse to answer emails. Move: a technician taps a panel that lists corrections, speed slowdown, gravity speedup, Earth's rotation shenanigans, and the total looks like a restaurant bill after your friends only had a salad. Every navigation fix is a race against error growth. Fact: light covers about 30 centimeters in a billionth of a second, so a few stray nanoseconds shove your location by city block distances. Punchline: that's how brunch becomes a hike. Move: the ground segment constantly compares satellite clocks to an ensemble of atomic divas on Earth, nudges their frequency by tiny amounts, and uploads updates that read like apology notes to time itself. Engineers pre-bias satellite clocks before launch. Fact: at altitude, weaker gravity tries to speed them up while orbital motion tries to slow them down. The net drift is offset on the ground, so the in-space misbehavior lands near zero. Punchline: we gaslight the clock until reality corrects it. Move: without the offset, the constellation would scatter your rideshare into a river, tag your run in the neighbor's yard, and swear you drove through a museum. Under the hood, receivers don't trust anyone. Fact: your device listens to 4 or more satellites, solves for 3 coordinates plus its own clock bias, and cross-examines signals like a detective who hates sleep. Punchline: your phone is quietly doing algebra while you loudly blame it for missing the turn. Move: multi-constellation support, GPS, Galileo, GLONASS, Beidou, gives extra angles and resilience because nothing says robust like asking rivals to agree on time. Timekeeping networks are the planet's invisible scaffolding. Fact: financial exchanges stamp trades to within microseconds, power grids phase synchronize alternating current across states. Radio telescopes merge signals from continents apart as if they were one dish. Punchline: you thought time was for birthdays. It's actually duct tape for civilization. Move: a fiber link in the rack spits out identical pulses at both ends of a 1,000-kilometer span. The system subtracts out the light's travel time, the fiber's temperature mood swings, and Earth's spin wobble like it's clearing lint from a record. Metrology labs breed clocks like car tuners breed engines. Fact: optical clocks based on strontium or ytterbium tick hundreds of trillions of times per second and keep phase, so well they could tattletale on continental drift by watching gravity change. Punchline: geologists can now ask a clock what the mountain weighs. Move: cart a portable clock across a valley, log how its rate shifts by a few parts in a quintillion, and contour a map of the geoid whose wiggles reveal aquifers, magma movement, and the kind of mass redistribution you don't want to read about after moving in. Particle accelerators are time dilation theme parks with better cafeterias. Fact: particles with lifetimes too short to be interesting at rest become chatty when pushed near light speed. Their decay clocks lag, letting them traverse meters instead of millimeters. Punchline: you don't extend life, you negotiate it. Move: Hadron Collider operators pump energy into protons until most of the budget inflates the relativistic factor, not the speedometer. Collisions happen at energies that would make Newton write a note and walk into the sea. Communications ride the same tiger. Fact: satellites fling carrier waves across the globe, and to keep phase-locked loops from sulking, ground stations correct for Doppler from relative motion and for delay changes from ionospheric mood swings. Punchline: your livestream is a ballet of excuses wrapped in math. Move: timing channels piggyback on data to discipline local oscillators, because letting a base station free run is how networks forget what century it is. Aerospace navigation bakes relativity into every checklist. Fact: inertial measurement units integrate accelerations to infer position but drift like a shopping cart. Star trackers reference celestial catalogs that don't sit still thanks to aberration. Clock models fold in motion and gravity so guidance doesn't aim for where Mars was last Tuesday. Punchline: spaceflight is just refusing to be wrong for 6 months in a row. Move: deep space links schedule uplinks to hit tight windows when path delays and time budgets behave. One sloppy nanosecond becomes a miss that nobody can spin at the press conference. Even mundane rails and roads flirt with time's sharp edges. Fact: positive train control systems coordinate braking with GPS time. Tunnel repeaters rebroadcast timing into places satellites can't reach. Survey crews use real-time kinematic tricks to shave errors down to centimeters by canceling common mode errors between a base and a rover. Punchline: your driveway stakes were set by a clock wearing a hard hat. Move: when a base station jumps because someone moved its antenna, the rover's solution groans, and the engineer's coffee cools untouched. In power, the grid sings one note that must be in tune. Fact: generators across a region lock their alternating current to a shared phase. If one plant's timing drifts, currents fight, lines heat, and the control room starts speaking in acronyms. Punchline: orchestras tolerate divas, grids do not. Move: phasor measurement units sample voltage and current dozens of times a second against a GPS-disciplined clock, letting operators spot phase angles, sliding the wrong way before the lights decide to write a memoir. Seismologists are getting nosy with time, too. Fact: networks of cheap devices timestamp tiny perturbations in the air from a shock wave or a rocket and triangulate sources using nothing but synchronized ears. Punchline: the planet now carries a gossip network for thunder. Move: distributed acoustic sensing in buried fibers turns telecom waste into a continent-sized microphone, with the beat locked to a master clock, so each wiggle knows when it happened. Aerospace medicine even tiptoes into the circus. Fact: long-stay astronauts accrue measurable but tiny differences in biological age compared with ground control, because their clocks are both moving fast and living higher, one effect slowing, one speeding. Punchline: space gives you a weird loyalty program with complicated fine print. Move: mission planners log the math alongside radiation dose and bone loss, not because anyone is chasing time hacks, but because closing budgets is easier when the clocks don't argue. Your camera's shutter secretly worships timing, too. Fact: satellite imaging requires knowing to the microsecond when each line was captured, or parallax makes buildings lean like they're auditioning for noir. Punchline: geospatial lies are born one lazy tick at a time. Move: onboard clocks discipline the scan. Ground processors bend pixels back into shape, correcting for satellite speed, Earth's rotation, and the light's arrival jog like a tailor fixing a suit mid-wedding. Even sports refuse to be innocent. Fact: photo finish systems align multiple camera clocks to a master pulse, so the difference between victory and a lawsuit is a handful of microseconds, not a judge's haircut. Punchline: your medal is a timestamp with marketing. Move: race organizers check the timing vans in the morning against a reference, and again at night, because the only thing worse than a wrong winner is a wrong winner with a lawyer. Once you notice the scaffolding, you can't unsee it. Fact: everywhere a system cares about when relativity peeks in with a tiny invoice, motion tweaks, gravity tweaks, frame definitions, and conversions that behave if you treat them with respect. Punchline: time isn't a background track, it's the sound engineer who mutes your mic if you miss rehearsal. Move: The lab's displays dim one by one while a last clock case sits unopened on the bench, and the label on its lid hints at a question people ask with a mix of awe and side-eye that even the neatest ledger can't close without a fight. Fact: a slow clock isn't tired, it's loyal to its own path. Punchline: your watch isn't lazy, it's just unionized with geometry. Move: proper time is the mileage on your personal route through space-time, tallied by your atoms, your thoughts, your everything, with no outside consultant signing the timesheet. Fact: there is no single global now stretched across the cosmos like a bedsheet. Punchline: the universe forgot to install a group calendar. Move: each observer slices space-time into their own present, angled by motion and altitude, which is why two honest people can point at the same pair of events and disagree about their order without anyone committing a crime. Fact: causality doesn't wobble even when time rates do. Punchline: the speed limit refuses bribes. Move: light cones fence what can influence what, keeping before and after on a short leash so your toaster can't send messages to your breakfast yesterday, no matter how aggressively you push the buttons. Fact: calling it time slowing is a trap set by language. Punchline: it's not molasses, it's bookkeeping. Move: every clock ticks normally for itself. Differences only appear when paths meet again and receipts get compared, which is when people start accusing physics of being a prank show. Fact: moving faster trades personal seconds for spatial distance. Punchline: frequent flyer miles, but the airline is space-time and the lounge serves existential dread. Move: sprint hard enough and you skip a chunk of everyone else's calendar, which sounds like a life hack until you notice your own life budget got tighter while you were flexing. Fact: gravity edits tempo by location, not by mood. Punchline: basements hoard minutes like misers, mountaintops tip extra seconds like show-offs. Move: living deeper in a gravitational well makes your atoms stack fewer ticks between breakfasts compared with a friend who lives higher. And no, you can't invoice the mountain for the difference. Fact: simultaneity isn't a neutral referee, it's a local rulebook. Punchline: at the same time is just according to this slice, which is the politest way to pick a fight in a physics department. Move: once you accept angled now planes, all the weird arguments evaporate, and what felt like paradox turns into, you're both right, sign here. Fact: the geometry of spacetime is the policy. The Lorentz factor is simply the flavor text. Punchline: the square root didn't create drama, it printed the menu. Move: different paths between the same meeting points rack up different personal durations, and the straight, unaccelerated route hoards the most, which is precisely the kind of boring rule the universe loves to enforce. Fact: time isn't a flowing substance, it's a parameter your world line accumulates. Punchline: you don't bathe in time, you budget it. Move: talk of flow is a myth people use when clocks behave. The moment you push speeds or depths, the metaphor slips, and the ledger takes over with a stapler and a stare. Fact: your biology is a clock network pretending to be a person. Punchline: you are Swiss timing with opinions. Move: chemical cycles, neural rhythms, cell division. All of them integrate proper time, not some cosmic average, which is why no one ever feels time dilation. You embody it. Fact: relativity is not permission for chaos, it's a stricter kind of order. Punchline: fewer rules, stronger consequences. Move: keep the speed limit and the metric, and every prediction lands where it should, from satellite fixes to particle decays, with an attitude that says you were warned. Fact: length contraction is the companion, not the clown car. Punchline: distances don't shrink to be cute, they realign with time to keep light honest. Move: space and time share the burden, so that the no exceeding light clause never breaks, like two co-workers who hate each other but still meet the deadline. Fact: energy and momentum bookkeeping upgrades itself to match the new geometry. Punchline: Newton's receipts were fine for bicycles, rockets demanded itemized charges. Move: near light speed, more shove fattens your time stretch factor rather than your speedometer, which is why accelerators eat electricity like teenagers eat cereal. Fact: time travel to the future is a Tuesday for high-speed travelers. Punchline: the machine is called a vehicle that doesn't mind fuel bills. Move: You can cruise near the limit and come back when fashion has cycled twice, but the price is paid in your personal minutes, not someone else's. Fact: travel to the past isn't on the menu while the speed limit owns the kitchen. Punchline: no grandfather paradoxes, only grandfather clocks, and those are snitches for proper time. Move: space-time structure lets you tilt your now, but bars you from folding it backward, keeping cause ahead of effect even when opinions differ on what ahead means. Fact: every correction in your devices is a confession that time is local. Punchline: your phone speaks a dialect. Move, orbit, rotation, altitude, weather, cable length. All of it gets translated into a timing accent your receiver understands, which is why your map behaves even when the city does not. Fact: perception isn't built to handle non-universal time. Punchline: brains didn't evolve at 9/10 light speed. Move: intuition keeps whispering, one clock to rule them all, and physics keeps replying cute, which is why we carry diagrams like passports whenever the conversation tries to leave the country. Fact: the word before wears a badge stamped by light cones. Punchline: calendars are social, causality is federal. Move: your stories about events only make sense if links fit inside those cones. Step outside and verbs lose meaning in a way no editor can fix. Fact: space-time might be emergent from deeper stuff. Punchline: the stage may be made of the actors. Move: some theories hint that geometry could arise from entanglement patterns, as if time is the scoreboard of information rearranging itself, which is rude to clocks and thrilling to people who enjoy arguments at 3 a.m. Fact: entropy gives time a direction inside the cones we're allowed to use. Punchline: the arrow isn't painted on the street, it's painted on your coffee cooling. Move: while relativity maps the lanes, thermodynamics tells you which way the traffic usually leans, and that partnership keeps kitchens and galaxies from behaving like reruns. Fact: meaning comes from choices made along a path you can't rewind. Punchline: free will is you writing on a receipt that can't be edited later, which is unromantic and motivating at the same time. Move: speed and gravity let you tilt the spacing of your moments. What you pack into those moments still belongs to you. Fact: language will keep calling it time slowing because humans love drama. Punchline: tweets are cheap, clocks are not. Move: say slower if you like, but remember the real sentence is different proper time on different world lines. Whispered by devices that don't care how poetic you feel. Fact: none of this makes the universe colder. It makes it stranger and more generous. Punchline: you don't lose magic when you learn the trick, you gain backstage access. Move: the more precisely we count, the more uses we invent, from mapping hidden water to steering probes across darkness with a stopwatch and a nerve. Fact: standing still is just one strategy in a landscape where motion and depth price your seconds. Punchline: you're already in a negotiation. Pretending you aren't won't improve the deal. Move: you can choose high ground for faster clocks, choose fast lanes for shorter personal timelines, choose instruments that tell you exactly what you bought, and the invoice will keep arriving with the same black ink and the same unblinking signature. Fact: the story isn't whether time slows, it's what you do with the time your path allows. Punchline: geometry writes the margins, you fill the page. Move: the lab lights hum, the unopened case clicks, and somewhere a clock starts up with a tone that hints there are still angles left to test, still slices left to tilt, still questions that won't stop tapping until someone answers with more than a slogan.